So my name's Mark Cowling. I help coordinate a learning community online every month where we look at a different topic. And essentially, Gather Movement is an organization that helps churches work together across their towns and cities, believing that there are things we can do better together. We're a small core team, but we connect with 150 different cities and towns across the UK that have church unity groups. So that's the kind of lens that we're coming from. But today we have recently changed the program for today. So today is about schools. So if you're here for schools, thinking about schools and young people, that's great. And the question that I guess we're wanting to answer is how can churches and church unity groups be more ambitious in reaching schools to help young people start well? Um, so we've got a couple of practitioners in this area, Joe and Tony, who are going to share with us in a minute. But let me just start by reading this interesting uh, bit of information. Child brain development is a rapid process with 90% of the brain formed by age 5. And that is driven by forming over 1 million neural connections per second through experiences like playing, talking, responsive caregiving, establishing foundational skills in motor, language, social, and cognitive areas through critical remodeling. And that critical remodeling continues until the mid-20s, especially the prefrontal cortex. There's some biological information about what's going on in our childhood and adolescence. We know from research now that if a child is school ready at age 4, that's a set of sort of 12 key skills, then their life chances are dramatically improved. So actually supporting young people to start well is really, it's difficult to think of anything more important, really. And often poverty and health inequalities do fundamentally affect this. We also know that when children are in school, that just keeping them engaged in school and getting them to really flourish in school it has a huge impact in terms of their life chances. So we wanted to think again with you today about how we not only increase our impact of our work in schools, but actually how we also multiply it, how we send more workers into the field. Um, so yeah, we're great to have Joe. Joe, can we start with you? Is that all right? Just tell us about your organization and something of the needs you see with young people and children in the school context.
So, our mission is to transform young people's lives with God's love through sport and support. And so, what that looks like is that we go into schools and we do four things: physical education, street dance, mentoring, and chaplaincy, as we provide a holistic approach of the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. But we also partner with local community groups such as churches to upskill volunteers to run extended sport or dance coaching in the evenings or at the weekends at a time which is complementary rather than in conflict to when church happens. So that in terms of our work, we've grown nationally. So we're in 8 regions of the UK. And today we work with 31,147 kids a week. In terms
Fantastic.
of needs, yeah, it's been a miracle. So, in terms of some of the needs of the children and young people that we encounter, I mean, we encounter a really wide range from uh, issues of self-esteem, issues of pressure around academic achievement, issues of obesity, which now affects more than 50% of children and young people are overweight or obese in the UK. Um, Issues of self-harm through the mentoring, issues of anxiety, um, and issues of hopelessness. 3 out of 5 children and young people in the UK now would say they feel a sense of hopelessness about their futures. So we see a number of different aspects, and essentially, a telling statistic for me is that 95% of children, young people are not in church. And whilst we all know that church isn't always perfect, um, the existence of God provides a real hope for the future and a joy in the present. And so I think some of that all feeds into that reality. But as I say, there's a whole range of different ways in which we work with children and people and seek to respond to the needs that they have.
Yeah, I love the sort of the different aspects of support there, the physical with physical education, and we know how important that is for mental health, um, as well as things like motor skills, but also the kind of spiritual there with the chaplaincy and the emotional there with the mentoring. Um, I think one of the things that I'm excited about with Kick is you have an exciting way of financing this, a
Yeah.
business model that means that churches don't need to, front up all of the cost for extra youth workers. So tell us about how that works.
Yeah, well, it's very simple in that uh, governments, schools, hospitals, prisons were all founded as social action from local churches in the first place. The Prime Minister is called the Prime Minister because he was supposed to minister between God and the people. So we feel it's only fair that in 2025, the government should contribute towards mission. And so there are existing budgets within schools that purchase provision, and we are a not-for-profit organisation. And so some of that money comes towards our work in schools and enables us to train volunteers from local churches to run the Kick Academies, which essentially are therefore sustainable long-term enterprises that have no ongoing costs for churches to pay our professionals to run. And so again, that's something that we are delighted to see. We've actually seen 15 new church-based kick academies launch in the last 12 months. And so that's been really, really exciting for us to see churches embrace the opportunity of sports ministry. And at I had a chance to go to General Synod. I'm not from the Church of England, but we spoke at General Synod in February, and we're thrilled to hear that the bishops decided that in every diocesan strategy there must be some reference towards sports ministry for the first time in history. So we were
Wow.
delighted about that, and so again, we really believe that sport can be used for personal, social, and spiritual good. And so we are, yeah, encouraged with some of the movement there. We're excited by that.
Okay. So as I understand it, your model is that there is, funding accessible to fund a worker that will go into schools and do this work in schools, but will also have a relationship with a church in the community, and in a sense provides a bit of a bridge between the two. Just talk us through that.
Yeah, we don't want to be a burden to local churches. And we do appreciate that there are few, only 4.5% of children and people are in church. So there is this great chasm between church and school where 99.1% of kids are, and only 4.5% of kids are in church. So what we seek to do is go into schools, provide services, and then enable local churches to run kick academies where the children, young people can be invited to come if they'd like to. And just what we're
Okay.
seeing is that children, young people are then welcome to church with a stepping stone of the Kick Academy to explore not only their physicality, but also their belief systems. What do they believe about these things? And I think it's really sad at present in the UK that you are 7 times more likely to be playing sport on a Sunday than going to church. Why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't it be both? And
Mm.
so a Kick Academy presents um, a sporting opportunity at a time which is complementary rather than in conflict to when church happens. And so that's where we, really see the opportunities there for churches to grasp this opportunity to enable sport to happen, and also for children and young people to have a chance to experience church too. Um, and and yeah, so our model is to provide services in schools that the government pay for, and then to train church volunteers to run kick academies. And because they're through volunteers, there's no ongoing costs. We do not have any ongoing charges. We do provide ongoing advice and guidance and resources for church volunteers to do that. A whole network where we have a tournament and prayer times and additional training throughout the year. And as I say, we now have 37 of these across the country, these Kick Academies, as well as in the schools. We're in 107 schools at present.
Okay. And just spell out the connection between a kick worker in a school and that kick academy at the church. Are they connected?
Yeah, so there is a connection point. Invariably, we send in coaches, mentors, and chaplains to schools to deliver the professional services, but then we train volunteers from local churches that may well have a job Monday to Friday, but might often have dreamed of being a sports coach, but aren't doing that as a profession. But actually, they then get a chance to do that on a Saturday morning or a Sunday after church, or Tuesday night or whatever it is. And so we train the volunteers in the church and we provide the coaches in the school. But yes, we encourage connection points between the kick coach in the school and then the kick volunteers in the community so that that transition is easier. And if I give you one quick example, there was a church plant in Hounslow called Hope Church. They launched a kick academy. They had 7 kids for a number of years. The pandemic came, it closed everything down. We then wondered, should we open up the Kick Academy or not again? Because it's only got 7 kids. And the parents said, if you don't, we will have to send our kids to play sport on a Sunday morning. There's no other option. They need to be physically fit. They've been locked up for the
Mm.
best part of a year. And so week one, they got 14 kids. Every kid brought a friend. Week two, they'd gone to 22 kids. Week three, 32. It grew and grew. They now have 140 kids a week at that Kick Academy. They have different age breakdowns, secondary and primary. And we're in 3 schools locally, and we encourage the kids to come and sometimes invite the volunteers from the church to come and do an assembly. And so there's that connection point, as you rightly asked about, Mark. But that has
Mm.
really oiled the wheels to now have 140 kids engaging with church that wouldn't otherwise have done. And again, we're just seeing that more families coming to church as a result of that.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess you're dealing directly with schools about providing kick in schools, and you're speaking to churches about their interest in kick academies. So you're thinking about churches working together in a place? Are there benefits that by having a network of churches across a town that can actually bring to a partnership with Kick and having a Kick Academy?
Definitely, definitely. So, for example, there may be a church that is not volunteer rich, if you like, but may have some good connections with the local schools. Well, they could introduce us. Equally, there might be a church that has lots of people but no local connections, and they could set up a Kick Academy, and then we could start working in the schools, and the kids could go to the Kick Academy, and
Yeah,
more children, young people engage in church as a result. Wonderful. Equally, it may be that that there might be people in a church where people are looking for jobs, or even never knew that they could have a job as a coach, mentor, chaplain in a school with an organization with a Christian ethos. Well, those jobs exist. We've just employed 14 new members of the team. And so again, we would be thrilled to for people to know about our mission, and if they'd like to be involved, come work for us. And so again, we have leadership and management positions, coaching positions, chaplaincy, mentoring. But yeah, we'd be really excited, as I say, or it could be all three, or a combination of those three. But we would definitely not discourage a church if they had volunteers and no connections, or connections and no volunteers. To not get in touch, please get in touch. There's always different kinds of ways we can work together, and we'd encourage communities to work together. Really would.
great, great. Thanks, Joe. We'll come back to you in a second, but I want to bring in Tony at this point. Welcome, Tony. Good to have you with us.
Good to
Um,
join. Had a few tech
uh,
issues. We're here.
Yeah. Oh, well, you made it. That's great. So tell us about your work with YOYO. What does YOYO do? And I guess in particular, what is the need that you're trying to address in schools with young people?
Okay. Thanks, Mark. I'll try and do that as succinct as I can. YOYO is York Schools and Youth Trust. It's been going as a charity for nearly 30 years. It works in primary and secondary. Think about what the unique features of YOYO are. The fact it works both primary and secondary, the fact that it works predominantly in York City area, although we do give 10% of our time outside of York in the locality to support schools who often ask for that extra help and churches beyond York, but mainly in the city. Um, we have a team of 6 schools workers. We cover collective worship / assemblies. We do curriculum lessons. We do creative workshops. We do a lot of lunchtime clubs, mainly or probably predominantly at the moment in secondary, although we have done some in the past in primary. We do bespoke work for schools, we work and support them, and we work in partnership with local churches. And that is something that we are trying to develop more and more with a real kind of passion, intentionality, and vision, trying to empower the local church. So we're doing quite a few new things this Christmas in that respect, but covering a lot of those bases. The collective worships, which are still by the law in our land, should be predominantly Christian or broadly Christian, should we say. A lot of lessons / workshops and clubs. And I think on a massive encouragement, I've been involved in Christian schools ministry for over 30 years. 18 in the Northwest with Northern Schools Christian Union, NISCU, and nearly 15 now with YOYO. In the last year, we have seen a big growth in numbers of kids coming to secondary clubs. We've doubled our number. We've started a new club in a secondary school 2 weeks ago. There's another club about to start in a private school after Christmas because a sixth form student who's a Christian wanted that club to happen and has asked for YOYO to support and help facilitate that club. So we're definitely seeing in our city, as we're seeing in the country, that quiet revival is real, is happening. Young people are definitely asking more questions, and in primary schools, kids ask some deep, deep questions. So we're finding a big need to support schools in curriculum, a big opportunity and needing support in schools with clubs and extracurricular activities, a bit like what Joe was saying, with providing resources, providing extracurricular activities regarding sport predominantly. But I find that schools appreciate Christians going in to provide resources, materials, and people on the ground who are Christians and can share transparently about their faith. So I think that's covers a lot of ground. Hopefully,
Yeah,
so
thank you, Tony. Tell me a bit more about your fundraising, because presumably there's a cost to
yes,
this work. How do you raise funds to cover it?
great follow-up question, Mark. Because the one thing when I'd finished speaking, I thought I should have mentioned because this is again uniquely different to Kick and what Joe was saying. Um, all of our funding comes through donations. So that is often local church because we are a local mission, but also individuals in different churches. Occasionally grants. We've been successful with a few grants, but not many over my time in YOYO. But what has been a big impact for us over the last few years are one or two donors that give big chunks of money to
Hmm.
help the team.
Hmm.
So we go like maybe a lot of charities with occasional wobble moments of if we don't get sizable chunks of money in, we could be potentially losing some staff or hours. And then a shed load of money comes in, sometimes from very unexpected sources at just the right time. Someone, yeah, has just guaranteed a load of money for the next 3 years, which helps us. But we still need that local support. And again, that's how we're funded.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Um, Great. We've been doing some mapping at Gather movement where we map where the churches are across a local authority. And we also do some surveys around whether they're engaging with their local schools. Um, Give you two examples. One was Bromley in London, where there was over 100 churches. We found 50% of them were delivering work in their local schools. We did the same survey in Oldham, a borough of Greater Manchester, and we found the same percentage that 50% of churches were delivering services in school. Obviously, there's a huge range of things that schools can do, from taking assemblies and collective worship, being governors in schools, running lunch clubs and after school clubs, and the things that we've heard from Tony and Joe today. Um, I just wanted to, I guess, ask you more widely about perhaps some of the other examples you've heard of really good ideas for reaching out to schools. And I'll put your hand up if you've got a suggestion, but I'll give just one example, and that's of an organization called Kids Club that runs in Leeds. I think it's a US program that's come across to this country, perhaps runs in more than one city, but I went to see it in Leeds, and it's a phenomenal project because they connect with schools and school children and invite them to come to church on a weekday evening. And they hire a fleet of buses to pick people up from bus stops across Leeds, particularly from deprived areas. And they bus them into this big church. And I mean, from my take on it, it was a bit like being a sort of spring harvest or new wine, kids event. It was huge. It was done in a very sort of professional way, highly resourced, and the young people have an excellent experience there. But then also get a follow-up visit from a youth worker during the week, where they get given a worksheet that relates to the main session at the church. So it's a big project, but it just showed the scale and impact of what churches can do working together. Just wanted to ask any of you really whether you've got any examples of ambitious projects reaching out to young people and schools that you might want to share. Go on, Tony.
Yeah. I'll maybe talk a little bit about ambitious projects in a moment, but I just want to share which I would say are my top thoughts or tips in terms of schools
Yep.
ministry. It's not rocket science, but it is fundamental and it is quite key and crucial. It's talking to churches and talking to schools. Church visits are massive, and some churches have that. We had but again, it's how you layer things with some intentionality. Yo-Yo did some lessons, and I've done some lessons in one of the York secondary schools, a non-church secondary school for a few years now. And one of the lessons we did last year was where the school were visiting the local church. Because we knew this church really well, we could help be the link between the school and the church. As part of the lesson in the church showed them a bit of Youth Alpha video. Some of the young people, I think the Year 10 class loved it, said, well, can we come to this church youth group? So, yeah, of course you can. So they went to youth group, some of them went, I think, or at least one of them went to church on Sunday as well and became a Christian as a result of all of that and went on their summer camp. So just simply being a bridge between church and school and seeing where the opportunities lie and linking the two can make a massive impact. Christmas, we're doing loads of stuff where we're trying to help churches to facilitate the school coming along and seeing the impact that that can make. If you check research about the impact that for young people and children when they have a positive experience. We do prayer and reflective spaces in churches. And so I'm a big fan of trying to create opportunities where young people and children can go along to their local church, have a great experience, learn more about the Christian faith in that environment and be linked in, therefore, straight away with that local church community. So I think sometimes while it's good to think outside the box, and I'm a big fan of that, we also I know about Kids Club, we have still some of that stuff in York as well. But I think one of my big thoughts is just go obvious and
Yeah.
maximize. I think there's rich potential, and I think in York we are nowhere near the bottom of the seam. I think we're maybe hopefully just beyond the tip of the iceberg in what we're doing. But I honestly want to say there's far more depth of relationship, far more that we can do with and combining with local church. Um, I worked with a primary school the other week doing creative writing poems so that they can read them out in the church, but empowering young people in retelling the Christmas story, empowering them in understanding it, but then connecting them into their local church. And the opportunities at Christmas and Easter, especially Christmas, are just massive. So that's why I want to give a big shout out to that, really.
Yeah,
Brilliant, brilliant.
I
Joe.
also, I mean, just to add to Tony's point, one of the things at Kick I'm really pleased about is we're not going to churches and asking them for money. We'd much rather they gave money to brilliant organisations like Tony's and others around the country that are doing religious education in schools and Christian-based assemblies and prayer spaces in schools. Those are all brilliant things. And so, again, I was with a schools ministry in Crawley that's just fantastic. I'm meeting one in Blackpool tomorrow. There's some fantastic ones in northwest London. There are so many excellent Christian-based ministries that churches faithfully fund to talk to our children, young people about Jesus and these kind of Easter experiences, Christmas experiences, etc. As a parent, every time I meet these organizations, I'm just incredibly grateful to them for the fantastic work that they faithfully do. And so again, it's a team effort, isn't it? There
Yeah,
are
yeah.
so many children, young people to meet, and we would just really encourage churches to give to these wonderful ministries that are local to them. And as I say, at Kick, if we can be helpful in providing, if you like, these guys are providing RE, well, we'll provide PE and double the number of Christians in those environments in the schools. Wouldn't that be great? So again, it's a team effort, and we really encourage churches to support these guys.
Great,
Brilliant.
great. Thank you. I want to ask you some more questions, but before I do, I'm just going to play a 1 minute video from Catherine Healy from acet. Catherine couldn't be here live, but she's just going to share for 1 minute a bit about her charity and the way that it supports um, uh, healthy esteem and relationships for young people. So if you'll just bear with me, I'll just share this video with you and we'll come back.
Okay, so my name is Catherine Healy, and I work for acet UK, which is AIDS Care Education and Training UK. We work in 15 countries around the world, and we started as a compassionate Christian response to those suffering from HIV. So our vision, the reason I took the job, is we want to transform culture, which is obviously quite ridiculous, but we know that God can transform culture. So we do that by promoting healthy self-esteem and positive relationships, because if you have healthy self-esteem and positive relationships, and I don't just mean romantic relationships, I mean families and friends as well, then you will have good sexual health once you get on to a romantic relationship. So victims and perpetrators of sexual abuse have unhealthy self-esteem. Now, you cast your mind back to when you were in school and maybe bullied. You might have thought that the bully was really confident, but usually they have really, really low, unhealthy self-esteem, and it is masked by unhealthily high self-esteem. So they're really cocky and arrogant. And you might think, yeah, they're really cool and they've got it all together. But actually, the reality is that hurt people often hurt people. So often they've been bullied or abused themselves, and they just learn that behavior and passed it on.
Great. So acet are another great Christian organization supporting work around the country. And Catherine wanted me just to share that if you go to their website, acet-uk.org, you'll see their esteem training, and it's a low cost to do it, but it's even been discounted 15%, 50% at the moment. So if anybody watching is interested in that, that's the place to go. And I think that is really equipping actually for church leaders and school workers to offer their leadership in this area of relationships in school, which is such a vital time. One of the points I've heard before is that the thing that young people don't have is experience to gauge their current emotions against. And so actually mentoring and support in the whole of life is so important, and being able to listen to children and help them express themselves and help discuss their questions with them is invaluable. I've been involved with a charity called Third Space in Bolton that does lunch clubs, and we've seen huge value working with children, same group of children actually, year after year as they go through the school in secondary school, going through that third stage of the human life cycle, which is adolescence, which has huge amount of changes, physical changes, hormonal changes, emotional changes, as well as all the pressures of exams that young people go through. So yeah, just wanted to share that as an example. And just to perhaps Karen, I don't know whether you could just tell us about your work with schools. You're in the Wirral, aren't you?
Yes. So at the moment, actually, my job role's kind of changed since COVID. So I was going into about 10 primary schools, doing assemblies and that. I'm down to about 3, because I also kind of run a social supermarket attached.
Wow.
So I go into 3 schools now a month, which are primary schools, to do assemblies with them. But I've got one particular school I've got big connections with, so I do school trips with them. So I've gone quite a few school trips. So we've got good relationships there, which we've seen also. There's a few Christian teachers in there. So we've been able to kind of set up prayer meetings with the teachers.
Yeah.
Look for them there.
Fantastic. And I think as church leaders, it's great to connect with schools workers, but also chaplains that are employed by schools. In Bolton, the church network there have come together to run a 1 week campaign called Love Your School, which encourages every church to just advertise the fact that it's Love Your School Week in Bolton, and to ask the school, how can we serve you in this week? And just by having that campaign and that badge for a week has enabled church leaders and church members to actually just go and start a conversation with their local school and say, how's it going? Is there anything we can do to support? And it's a great sort of starting point for building more relationships with schools. Any other thoughts or questions people have at this stage?
I love the Love Your School Week. I think, again, it just gives a nice initiative, a nice focus for churches to kind of step up into that. And I think just a thought into it is, go with the gifts you've got and the strengths you have, and don't worry as a church what you can't do, but just think what you can give. What can you support? And just jumping back to something that Joe said a while ago, on the back of where I was sharing about RE and PE, just also triggered a thought. Quite a few of lessons I provide for schools are in English, because I'm also a writer. So you can bring the Christian faith into things like the Holocaust or Anti-Bullying Week. There's so many big anti-slavery. There are so many big weeks, big days, World Book Day, National Poetry Day. If you've got people who are writers or artists, different talents, then it's kind of going in with the transparency and the integrity that you're Christians, but it's also knowing that you are ticking a box for curriculum. You're ticking a box for something of an outside agency coming in, because you're offering your particular skill set. So I think in that respect, it's thinking outside the box. How can we as Christians contribute to the school community beyond the RE classroom? I would definitely say to champion what Joe's doing, and that sense of thinking, well, what can we give? Who's in our church community? What skills do we have? What talents do we have? Where does this fit into the national, what's going on nationally and what's going on within the schools frameworks?
Great. Thank you, Tony. I think just a final point from me is that at Gather Movement, we've been helping church unity networks map what their churches deliver in terms of services that support children and families. And we've referenced the local council's government guidelines on family hubs. There are 24 services that the government wants local authorities to make available. And actually, churches can multiply the availability of those services. They include things like parent and toddler groups, as well as youth groups and a whole range of activities, including parenting courses and so on and so forth. I think what we've found useful about that in the places that we've done it, and we've completed it in 25 local authorities, or nearly completed it in 25 local authorities, is that becomes quite a powerful tool for signposting, because local councils do provide services, but often it's only at a couple of centres, whereas actually there are churches in every postcode. And by putting this map and the survey data into churches' hands, it means that actually we can signpost to where are the youth groups, for example, around our town. Where are the mental health courses around our town? Where are the parenting courses around our town? I think thinking about how we can collaborate more with schools, that mapping of what churches deliver in a place can be a really useful complementary tool. Great. The other thing I know Catherine was sharing earlier with me was that, when it comes to relationships, actually, children have got screens in their hands from a very early age these days. And she was really saying that, conventional thinking is that you need to start talking about relationships at 8 years old, but actually she thinks it's even earlier. So, there's this continuous thread of urgent support that's needed for young people, from that school readiness in the early years, and then pretty much when they start school, it's around this relationship education. So Joe, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say the big news this week is that the Australian government are moving to ban social media access to children and young people, and France have already started to do this with removing screens from access in children's centres until the age of 3. And ultimately, I think this is there's a number of schools that have had a smartphone ban. My son's school, for example, had a smartphone ban. We thought, oh goodness, how will we track them? And is this the right thing? Will they miss out on their friends? Well, ultimately, if none of their friends have a smartphone in school, then there isn't that peer pressure that they've all got to be using social media on their phones. And so a dumb phone or just a bog standard kind of Nokia actually suffices in terms of continuing that connection with the young person if a problem happens or arises. But crucially keeps them away from a number of safeguarding challenges. And so I think, we have these bans on smoking for children and alcohol for children, but we until recently haven't had any bans on pornography, and smartphone usage. And so again, I think we'll start to see the research is coming through thick and fast that these are dangerous environments for children and young people to be accessing. And actually, as acet's, excellent work, and I know Cassie really well, is doing is kind of saying, there are a number of harmful behaviors that exist. If we can cut some of those off at source, where children and young people are groomed online, etc., that's a nod in probably a more sensible direction than the one sometimes we have. We're just like, here's the whole world, go off and enjoy yourself. And we wouldn't let children and young people out in the streets late at night, but we allow them to go anywhere in the world on their phones. And so it's just sometimes I think at the moment it's just a bit of a blind spot for parenting and good governance of our children's lives that we need to wake up and realize is upon us.
Yeah, it's a great point, Joe. And I guess my experience is that schools aren't giving parents a lot of guidance about this. And so, where do we point parents to as they think about protecting their children, safeguarding their children from some of the harms online? Have you got any thoughts on
Yes,
that, Joe, from your work?
yes, I do. I met this morning with Annabelle Skinner, who who has set up an organization called Health Professionals for Safe Screens. And so again, you can Google their work, Health Professionals for Safe Screens. They are essentially doctors who are saying this stuff is damaging for the
Mm,
cognitive and process of a young person and also their anxiety levels. So the recent Centre for Social Justice event where they launched their Lost Boys report,
yeah,
which kind of I've got the report here somewhere, talks about how social media and smartphones and access to all these kind of interesting websites are very dangerous for our young people. I don't know if you know this, but 60% of terrorism offences are committed by under 20s in this country.
mm,
60% of terrorism offences are committed by children and young people in the UK. I mean, it's horrific. And they are
yeah,
being groomed from a young age to think extreme things and initiate extreme acts. And so again, this isn't happening in person. This is happening predominantly online. And so again, we just need to ensure that our children, young people are safe. I don't know if you saw the adolescence sort of drama,
mm,
but what was really frightening, I think, and really pinched a nerve for parents was that the parents were still together. They're in a largely happy family, normal life, but they had no, and they thought their son was safe because he wasn't out
mm,
at night. But he was very unsafe being groomed by various different people online. And so again, it's
yeah,
just that reality. And as I say, uh, this Lost Boys report by CSJ was very telling. One other group that's really helpful to check out is Will All Ewing's
mhm,
move to ban smartphones in schools, and there's a lawyer that's suing the government at present for smartphone access for children, young people in school settings
mm,
as harmful to children, young people, and there's so much evidence that they are. I mean,
yeah,
they're harmful sometimes for adults, aren't they? But we just don't have that sense of responsibility and helpful usage. That's
yeah.
something that is being investigated right now. So again, those are three maybe areas to investigate if you're interested in that.
Yeah, great. Really helpful, Joe. I guess just the final challenge really is how do we multiply the church's work in schools? Because, I think we're in a new culture really where actually there is a lot of harm and risk to people's well-being. Um, in this crucial stage of starting in life, as you mentioned the stats on terrorism there, Joe, but it's also just ability to function well in life, isn't it? And be able to provide for yourself and potentially a family and to do relationships well. All of these things are hugely affected by mentoring, by input through organizations like YOYO that are sharing faith and hope. Um, Joe, with the kind of physical and emotional support to young people. How do we multiply this across our towns so that it's not just one church, engaging with one school, but it's actually somehow we have a much bigger reach. It's not just faith schools; it's all the schools across our town. Have you got any thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say is um, that that actually there is a desire across schools for children and young people to be physically fit, healthy in their own minds. And one of the things we've been really challenged with, there's some what are called well-by measures, or they might even be called well-be measures. They're not named after the former Archbishop of Canterbury, but
Hmm.
they are very helpful and very interesting of what the what the government desire for children, young people, that young people are happy and less anxious, that they are satisfied with their lives, and thirdly, that they have meaning and purpose. And so,
Yeah.
interestingly, this all builds towards what's known as the happiness index, which is something that the government have been reporting on for a number of years, benchmarks. So these three areas are unlikely to change, these well-being measures or well-by measures. Um, and actually, they're a great opportunity for organizations with a Christian ethos to speak into. We
Mm.
do desire that children and young people are more happy and less anxious. We might even describe that as we prefer them to be more joyful and have more of a steadfast peace in a
Mm.
kind of Christian language, that young people are more satisfied with their lives. Well, again, have that hope and that kind of, again, contentment that Paul the Apostle talks about. And then thirdly, a meaning and purpose. Oh my goodness, we have this to offer in spades, not
Yeah.
just in this life, but the next. And that every life matters, and that every life has good works prepared in advance for people to do. Every single person's life has a meaning and a purpose if you are a Christian and believe in God. And so, again, interestingly, we have so much to offer in these areas. And at Kick, we describe these as personal development, social connection, and spiritual change. And so, again, we have so much to offer. People are terrified about what will happen at the end. Can we save the planet? These genuine like fear of how the world might end if we don't change things. Well, as Christians, we actually have given quite a bit of insight in the final book of the Bible about how the world will complete. And so actually and the fact that there'll be a new heavens and a new earth, for example, can give a bit more reassurance and hope that this life isn't the only opportunity. And so, just things like this, we have so much to offer. Brilliant organizations like you've heard from today I'm sure, regularly giving children and young people access to hope and to joy that are touching on these well-being measures that the government are interested in, and therefore lots of policy and schools are interested in as well. And I'll tell you one last funny thing. The happiness index, it's really interesting. The data says that it's a smile. You are most happy as a child and as a retiree, and you're least happy as a middle-aged person, kind of working hard and carrying the brunt of both generations either side. It's interesting that, isn't it?
Mm.
Happiness is fleeting, but joy is a state of being. And again, we have so much to offer on what it truly means to be happy, ultimately to be joyful as Christians. And we want to give that to children, young people, and prepare them well for, as that happiness index goes, more challenging times ahead before things get easier. So there we go.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Tony, just over to you. I mean, how do we increase the workers that are going into schools? Is there a way that or a top tip that you've got for us to increase the number of workers?
Yeah, pray. I think it's again the most obvious, but the most crucial
Mm.
thing is to be coming before God as a church community, just praying for your local school. I remember years ago, some mums just praying for the local school where the door was shut, and after so
Yeah.
many ex prayer meetings together, that school door opened wide. So I think just pray, pray, pray. Jesus said, ask the Lord, the harvest field is plentiful. Ask the Lord of the harvest field to send workers out there. So the doors in schools in a lot of places are open. Opportunities do exist. It is challenging being a Christian in our societies, but we have great opportunities. So I think just pray, ask God, seek God, and a bit like Isaiah when he saw the need and he put his hand in the air and said, "Here am I, Lord, send me." When you see the need, when you see the opportunity, you might be an answer to your own to those prayers yourself. But I think pray, 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 and again, just go in faith that God will use you. God will use the church. Is using the church in the local school.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, on that note, Tony, can I ask you maybe just to share a word of prayer as we close our time together? Thank you.
Very appropriate, very apt. Father God, thank you so much that you love this world, that as we come into this Christmas season, we think about the fact you sent your son because you love us. Father, Jesus sent out the disciples, and the message to us today is go and make disciples. So Lord, help us to go into our schools, help us to go into our local school communities with this life-changing, life-enhancing message. Lord, give us wisdom, give us the favor of the schools, give us your favor and your blessing for your name, for your glory, and for your kingdom come, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are recording it and it goes into our catalogue of videos for leaders to watch. And if anybody is watching this, we'd love you to put comments just below the video, particularly around other examples of schoolworks that you think are worth looking at and knowing about, so we can be encouraged by each other and learn from each other. Thanks again for joining us, and look forward to seeing you at the next event.